What if the ground beneath your feet has a pulse? A quiet, hidden rhythm that nobody ever noticed. Until now. For over a century, scientists have been listening to the San Andreas Fault. They've placed sensors along its 750-mile length. They've recorded millions of earthquakes. They've built the most sensitive instruments ever created. And they still missed something. Something hiding in plain sight. Not a big earthquake, not a small tremor. Something in between. A whisper, a pulse, a slow, gentle slide of rock that makes no sound, causes no shaking, and leaves no trace, except in the data, if you know where to look. In 2026, researchers at the GFZ Helmholtz Centre in Germany decided to try something different. Instead of staring at the data themselves, they let a machine do the staring. They fed years of underground readings into a deep learning AI system, and the machine found something that no human had ever seen before. Dozens of quiet slips, more than 90 of them, sitting in the data the whole time, waiting for someone or something smart enough to notice. This is the story of how AI uncovered a hidden pulse in the most dangerous fault in North America, and why it changes everything we thought we knew about earthquakes. Before we talk about the discovery, we need to talk about how faults actually move, because the story you've heard is only half the truth. We all know the classic earthquake story. 2 giant slabs of rock get stuck. Pressure builds. Then, in a violent instant, the slabs snap past each other. The ground shakes. Buildings fall. It's a terrifying story. And it's true. But it's not the whole story. Scientists discovered something else about faults about 2 decades ago. They found that faults can also move slowly, incredibly, impossibly slowly, over hours or even days, without any shaking at all. Imagine pushing a door open really, really slowly. It doesn't squeak, it doesn't slam, it just glides. That's what a fault can do. It slides so gently that the shaking never happens. If you were standing right on top of this slow slip, you would feel nothing. Your coffee wouldn't ripple, your dog wouldn't bark, the ground under your feet would be creeping along, and you wouldn't have a clue. This quiet movement is sometimes called slow slip or silent earthquakes, and it's happening all the time on faults around the world. Scientists have known about them for about 20 years. They've seen them in Japan, New Zealand, Mexico, and Cascadia. But finding them is hard, really hard, because they're so quiet. They don't show up on regular seismometers. You need special tools to see them, and even with the right tools, you have to dig through mountains of messy data. That's where the San Andreas Fault comes in, because the San Andreas has something other faults don't have. The most watched spot on Earth. There's a tiny town in central California called Parkfield. Barely anyone lives there. It's mostly rolling hills, oak trees, and cows. But underground, it's the most wired spot on the planet. Scientists have been studying Parkfield for over 30 years. They've drilled boreholes, they've buried strain meters, they've installed GPS stations, seismometers, creep meters, and magnetometers. If there's a tool to measure the ground, it's been installed at Parkfield. Why Parkfield? Because it's a creeping fault. Instead of locking up for centuries and then snapping, the fault at Parkfield moves slowly and constantly. It's like a zipper that's stuck in the open position. Always moving, never stuck. For scientists, Parkfield is a natural laboratory. They can study how faults move in real time. And they've collected so much data over the years that it's become one of the most studied patches of ground on the planet. Imagine thousands of recordings every single day for 30 years. That's 10 million recordings. That's enough data to fill a library. And that's where the problem started. Because the data from these sensors is incredibly messy. The ground moves constantly, from tides, from weather, from groundwater shifts, from temperature changes. It's a jumble of signals, all layered on top of each other. Finding a slow slip in that data is like trying to find a whisper in a hurricane. A human scientist can stare at those charts for years and only find the biggest, most obvious events. The small ones slide right past. For years, that's exactly where things stood. Scientists knew slow slips were happening at Parkfield. They'd found a handful of them, but they suspected there were more. They just couldn't find them. That's when AI walked into the story. To understand how AI found these hidden slips, we need to understand the tools that scientists built. The key instrument is called a borehole strain meter. It's a device that's lowered into a deep hole, often hundreds of feet below the surface. It's designed to measure changes in the rock around it. These instruments are incredibly sensitive. They can detect changes in the rock as small as 1 part per billion. That's like being able to measure the change in width of a piece of paper if you stretched it across the entire Earth. These sensors are so sensitive that they can feel the pull of the ocean tides. When the tide comes in, the weight of the water changes the pressure on the rock. These sensors pick it up and from miles away. By burying these sensors deep underground, scientists shield them from the noise on the surface. Wind, traffic, people walking, trees swaying. They get a clean signal from the Earth itself. At Parkfield, these strain meters have been recording continuously for over 30 years. The data is a continuous stream of numbers, millions of readings, showing how the rock squeezes and stretches over time. In that data, scientists were looking for a specific pattern, a slow, gentle rise and fall that lasts for hours or days, a shape that's completely different from a regular earthquake, different from the tides, different from weather. A regular earthquake looks like a sharp spike. A slow slip looks like a smooth curve, rising slowly, reaching a peak, and then falling back. It's a very specific signature, but it's tiny, and it's usually hidden among hundreds of other wiggles. Finding one of these events in the Parkfield strain meter record is like having a painting that you're trying to see, but it's covered by 100 layers of paint. You know the painting is there. You can even see the faint outline, but you can't make out the details. And then someone turned on the light. That light was a type of artificial intelligence called deep learning. Deep learning is different from traditional computers. Instead of following a strict set of rules, deep learning systems teach themselves. You feed them examples, and they figure out the patterns on their own. It works like the human brain. Your brain learns to recognize faces not because someone gave you a rulebook. It learns by seeing faces over and over. Deep learning works the same way. The researchers took years of strain meter data from Parkfield and fed it into a deep learning system. But they didn't just give it the raw data. They created examples of what they were looking for, synthetic slow slip signals, and taught the system to recognize that specific shape. The AI combed through the data looking for that specific shape. It ignored the tides. It ignored the weather. It ignored all the noise. It was looking for one thing, the slow, smooth signature of a silent slip. A human could never do this. There are too many recordings, too many signals, too many tiny variations. It would take thousands of years, but the AI could do it in hours. And it kept finding them, one after another, events that had been hiding in the data the whole time. Some of them had been there for decades. The researchers were stunned. They'd been staring at this data for years. They'd found some slow slips, but not this many. This is the power of AI. It's not about replacing scientists. It's about giving them superpowers, allowing them to see things they couldn't see before. This discovery opened a window into a hidden world below our feet, a world of constant, quiet movement, a pulse. The number was shocking. The AI found 92 separate slow slip events. Many of them had never been seen before. More than 20 of these events were brand new. They'd never been recorded in any previous study, and they'd been sitting in the data the whole time. They were hiding in plain sight. The data had been collected. It had been stored. It had been analyzed by some of the best scientists in the world, and yet no one had found them. It's a haunting thought. If we missed this on the most studied fault on Earth, what else are we missing? If it took AI to find these, how many other hidden signals are waiting to be discovered? The researchers started to see a pattern. The slow slips weren't random. They followed a rhythm, a pulse, like the Earth itself was breathing. Some events happened close together. Others had long gaps. But there was always something happening. The fault was never truly still. Now, you might be thinking, what if the AI was wrong? What if it was finding patterns that weren't really there? That's a valid concern. Scientists are skeptical by nature. So the researchers did a check. They compared the AI's findings to data from a different type of instrument, GPS stations that measure the movement of the ground. And they found a match. When the AI detected a slow slip on the strain meters, the GPS data showed the same movement. Two different instruments, measuring different things, telling the same story. That's how you know it's real. The slow slips were real. They'd been happening all along. We just couldn't see them. And that's the real breakthrough. A new way of seeing the fault, a tool that can find things that humans can't. This is just the beginning. But there was a twist, a connection that no one expected. When the researchers looked at the timing of these slow slips, they noticed something strange. After each slow slip, there was an increase in a certain type of small earthquake, something called low-frequency earthquakes. Low-frequency earthquakes are special. They're extremely small, way too small to feel. And so often they happen deep underground, often in the transition zone between locked and creeping parts of the fault. They're like the creaking of a wooden floorboard in an empty house. They're so subtle that scientists didn't even know they existed until recently. They discovered them in Japan in the early 2000s. Since then, they found them on faults around the world. What the researchers found was that the slow slips and low-frequency earthquakes were happening together. A slow slip would happen. A few hours or days later, there would be a burst of low-frequency earthquakes. Then the system would go quiet again. A pulse. It's like the fault is breathing. Slow, gentle, quiet breaths. A slide, followed by a tiny creak. A slide, followed by a tiny creak. Over and over. This is important, because it connects the dots between two things that scientists thought were separate. Slow slips and earthquakes. They're not separate. They're connected. They're part of the same system. The researchers are now thinking of fault movement as a continuum, It doesn't just have two settings, locked and quiet versus active and shaking. It has many settings. Slow slides, low frequency tremors, small earthquakes, large earthquakes. They're all connected. The fault is more complex than we thought. It's not a switch that's either on or off. It's more like a dimmer switch, with many levels in between. So why does this matter? Why should we care about slow slips and low frequency earthquakes? Let's be honest. People want to know one thing. Does this mean the big one is coming? The honest answer is, we don't know. And anyone who tells you otherwise is lying. This discovery is not a prediction. It's not a warning. It's not a countdown. It's a new piece of information. One piece of a very large puzzle. But here's what it could mean. Scientists have been studying earthquakes for over a century. They've learned a lot. But there's still a gap in our understanding between the slow processes that happen deep underground and the destructive earthquakes that happen at the surface. Slow slips might help fill that gap. They might help us understand how stress builds up on a fault and how that stress gets released, either in small events or large ones. They might be a key to unlocking earthquake science, not a crystal ball, but a tool that helps us understand the system better. Think of it this way. The silent pulse might reveal the fault's state. Is it relaxed or is it stressed? The slow slips and low-frequency earthquakes might give us clues. But we're not there yet. This is early research. There's a lot more work to be done. Researchers need to study other faults. They need to collect more data. They need to test their theories. So what does this mean for the big one? It means we're getting smarter. We're getting better at understanding the fault. We're learning new things. That's a good thing. Knowledge is power. The fault is not a mystery box anymore. We're starting to see how it works. And understanding the monster is the first step to being prepared for it. Knowledge saves lives. That's not a slogan. It's a fact. Think about how far we've come. 100 years ago, we didn't know what caused earthquakes. We couldn't measure them. We couldn't predict them. We could only react. Now we can see the fault's secret pulse. We can measure its slow movements. We can track its hidden rhythm. We can see things that no human has ever seen before. We have early warning systems in California that can give people seconds to minutes of warning before shaking arrives. A few seconds doesn't sound like much, but it's enough to stop a train. Open a fire station door, slip under a desk. The same approach can be used in other places. The Pacific Northwest, Japan, New Zealand, Mexico. All places with subduction zones and large earthquake risks. The AI technique that found these hidden slips at Parkfield can be used on any fault. It can be turned loose on decades of data. It can find things that no human has ever noticed. There are whispers everywhere, hiding in data, hiding in the noise, waiting for something smart enough to find them. But technology is not enough. It needs to be combined with public awareness, with infrastructure, with preparation, with all the things that make communities resilient. The goal is not to prevent earthquakes. That's impossible. The goal is to understand them, to prepare for them, to reduce the damage they cause. And the best part? Preparation is in your hands. You don't need to be a scientist. You don't need to live on a fault. You just need to be ready. Step back for a moment. Look at the big picture. What we've just described is a fundamental shift in how we see faults. For 100 years, we thought faults were simple machines. They got stuck, they snapped, they shook. Now we know it's more than that. The fault is alive. It's moving all the time. It has a secret pulse, a hidden rhythm that we're just beginning to understand. It's a world of whispers. Not shouting, not booming, whispering, and we've only just started to hear. What other secrets are hiding in the data? What other pulses are waiting to be found? What other mysteries will AI uncover next? The ground under your feet is not silent. It never was. It's been talking all along. It just took us a while to learn how to listen. Understanding earthquakes takes patience. It takes hundreds of scientists working for decades. It takes the slow accumulation of data. It takes someone, or something, with the patience to look. That's the real breakthrough here. Not just the finding, but the method. The way AI is helping us listen to the Earth's whispers. The hidden pulse is real. The San Andreas Fault has a secret rhythm. And for the first time, we've started to hear it. If you made it all the way here, you now know something that most people don't. The San Andreas Fault has a secret pulse, and we finally found it. If you enjoyed this, smash that like button, subscribe, and turn on notifications so you never miss the next one. When the ground does something strange, I'll always bring you the real story, not the fake panic. Now I want to hear from you. What's one thing you want to know about the San Andreas Fault or earthquakes in general? Drop it in the comments. I read them all. And if this sparked your curiosity, go watch my video on the atmospheric river that's heading for California. Stay curious, stay safe, and remember, the ground under your feet is never truly still. I'll see you in the next one.